On-call is something that most of us software engineers have to go through at least at some point in our career. It can be stressful and rough on us. So in this talk, we are going to speak about the current state of on-call and what are the challenges and what can engineering leaders and practitioners do to take care of their engineers. This talk was given at the Google SRE New York City Tech Talks. Because of some legal reason, the video may not be shared, and because many of you asked for this video to be shared, I decided to record it at home. A little bit about Rootly before we get into the topic. Rootly is an on-call and incident management tool. We help companies to manage their incidents as fast and as best as they can. We're helping teams like LinkedIn, Dropbox, NVIDIA, Canva, Replit to manage their incidents. We also have an AI SRE so that when something breaks, you are not alone to troubleshoot the issue, and you have an AI agent that's doing the investigation alongside you. Or maybe sometime, let's say you are not in front of your computer, by the time you get to your computer, a first analysis is already done. Little bit about me. My name is Silva. I'm leading the Rootly AI Labs. The role of the labs is to explore what AI can bring to the world of reliability. Everything we do is open source. We do a lot of prototyping, building open source tools, and doing research. Everything is shared on our GitHub workspace and on our blog. And when I'm not helping engineers to manage their incidents, I'm helping bees manage their incidents, and turns out they have a lot of it. Most of us engineers are on call. According to a recent survey, 72% of the responders said that they were involved in some type of on-call rotation, whether it was tier or second tier. And on-call can be rough, right? It brings stressful situation. It can get in the way of your personal life, and it can also impact your ability to work. Most of us, the vast majority of incident responders, are experiencing some type of stress when managing an incident. Also, most of us experience stress after the incident is done. While the survey didn't dig into the why, we can imagine that many organizations are still not adopting the blameless methodology, where we are not blaming engineers for incidents, but instead a lack of guardrails for the system. Incident solving is often done as a quick fix, but then there is a lot of follow-up work that may happen to make sure that the problem won't happen again. And that may be stressful for engineers. Oftentimes, it's not fun work. What shocked me the most is that most of us, while we are on call, it's disrupting our sleep, even if we're not getting paged. And this is because being on call is sometimes dramatic. And I think your brain is like, hey, like at any point this night, I could get a page and I could be spending my night handling something very stressful, and then maybe having to go to work or handle my personal responsibilities the day after. So yeah, on call is really rough. And while I could not find data for software engineers, I found data for medical staff. A survey found that doctors who were on call and had long shifts were 5 times more likely to come up with serious diagnostic errors after being on call for a while. All right, the tech industry is really going through a transformation with the GenAI wave, and I wanted to see what's the impact of GenAI on incidents and on call. And if you think about it, your number of incidents may look like this, right? Because this is an artist representation, of course, but if you consider the incident rate of your infrastructure with the following formula, you can quickly understand that because C, which is a number of changes per unit time applied to a system or a code base, is drastically increasing, right? Because of coding assistants like Codex and Cursor and Claude Code and whatnot, the amount of code and the speed at which developer can create this is skyrocketing, right? So statistically, your number of incidents should increase. And I wanted to actually look at the actual data. Turns out working for Rootly is perfect because that's what our platform does. Our customers have managed hundreds of thousands of incidents thanks to our platform. And so I looked at the average number of incidents per users. I did this from 2023, right when GenAI was starting to emerge, up to today. And what I saw is that the number of incidents increased by 3. Correlation is not causation, but this was published a few hours before I gave my talk at Google. The Financial Times got a hold of an internal note that was shared at Amazon where the company called for an emergency meeting with their engineering organization because they experienced a large volume of outages in the last months. They pointed a finger at GenAI, explaining that they didn't have a very strong process on how to handle this new way of working, and that they needed to increase the number of code reviews and have more senior people review changes being pushed to production. It's an anecdote, but I think we can all agree that GenAI, in general, can be a strong factor that will increase the number of incidents that you will have to manage when you are on call. And it's not just the volume of incidents that will change, it's also the help that you may be able to get when you are managing one. Let's say something is down, you are doing a git blame on the problematic piece of code, and you ask the engineer, hey, can you help me troubleshoot this incident? The answer might be, hey, sorry, buddy, I actually prompted Claude to write this, and so I have no clue how this code is working. Similarly, let's say there is a very serious incident, save 0, and your database is misbehaving, and you need an expert, a MySQL expert to help you. It might be harder to find because with GenAI, generally engineers are becoming more and more generalist and less specialized in specific technologies. So the summary is that you may have to handle more incidents with less help, while your manager is like, chop, chop, you need to do more with less because you have AI helping you. All right, what can we do about it? And obviously there is a ton of things that can be done. Today, I want to focus on one specific point, which is the people who are staffing this on-call rotation. As an industry, we've become very good at monitoring the health of our systems, but we are doing almost close to nothing to do this for our teams. And so I think our friend Chris put this in words I could not have done better. The standard is to monitor the health of your system, but to stand out is to monitor the health of your humans. And so I will give you a methodology on how you can get started at doing this and making sure that you monitor the health and the load of your engineers to ensure that they are not getting overworked. And there are really 2 types of data that you can collect, the observed and the self-reported data. Observed data is coming from tools that your engineers are using, incident management tools, tickets, code hosting platform. And from this, you can collect how many on-call rotation did this engineer handle, how many incidents did they manage, what was the severity, were they working at night, were they pushing code at night, do they have a lot of tickets in their backlog, like a bunch of signals that you can get from tools that may indicate that your engineers are overworked. The second type of data is, in a way, very straightforward, right? One of the best ways to know if someone is not feeling well is to ask them very simply, right? Here, you can use a methodology that's used by the medical field. Actually, Apple Health is using it on their watch. So if you have an Apple Watch, you probably have been prompted this question, how are you feeling today? And what's having the biggest impact on you? And here you can select a main category. We also recommend you add like a free form so people can fill in and put some text to really explain what's going on. And the idea is to do this oftentimes right, periodically over a period of time so you can monitor how the trend is going. All right, so now you have this data. What do you do with it? There are like two ways really that we believe you can structure this data. The first one is to come up with a score, a risk level. For instance, let's say that Alice has a risk level of 88, and this risk level is calculated by aggregating all of these signals that we collected from observed and self-reported data. Okay. And this score, you should really see it as isolated to the individual. What I mean by this is that let's say that Alice, she's a very senior person. She's been on call for 15 years. She's very comfortable handling a safe zero incident. Been there, done that, right? When Bob, who might have started on the job 6 months ago, is panicked every time he's getting paid, right? The score gives you like a kind of a baseline load for the individual, very useful when you are starting to monitor your team and you are putting this in place. And if you see that some of your engineers have a high score, start a conversation with them in priority versus an engineer who may have a lower score. But that will only tell you a part of the picture, right? The second way to use this data is to look at it over time and look at the trend. And in my opinion, this is the most important way to look at this data. Let's say that Bob is usually has a risk of 35, but over the period of a month, it went to 65. That's a significant increase. And if you look at his baseline, maybe his baseline is around 35. That's like a major jump, which in this case, you probably want to have a conversation. The load that's coming on engineers who are on call is sometimes progressive, right? And that's the worst type. Like it's creeping in progressively. And as a manager, or even as the person who is having to deal with this increasing load, you may not realize that you are getting in a bad place. And so looking at the trend on a short and a long term really allow to paint like a better picture. Now, we spent a lot of time working and researching this field at the Rootly AI labs. And obviously, we are not a research center. None of the signals that you can come up with should be considered a diagnostic, right? Those are signals that can bring something to your attention and be a good conversation starter. But in no way should you take this data at face value. So if you want to get started on doing this now with coding assistants, you can put something together quite easily, or you can just use your AI agent and plug a bunch of MCP server, get going collecting data. Or you can also use On-Call Health, which is a free and open source project that the Rootly AI lab developed. Because it's free and open source, you can host it yourself or use the hosted version. And it's basically an advanced version of what I just described in the talk. I'm just going to share a quick demo of it. If you want to get a feel for the tool, you can go to oncallhealth.ai and log in. There is mock data that's available without you needing to connect anything. This is the mock data I'm showing here. So you can see at the top of the main page, we are sharing some high-level statistic about your team. We are showing how the risk level is evolving over time. What are the factors that are impacting the health of your team, as well as the ability to dig into specific individual. For instance, here you can see that Marcus has a very high level and risk level has been increasing. So you can look into the data and really understand what's happening for a specific user. All right, to finish the talk, I wanted to share a little bit about how some of our users are using On-Call Health. I wanted to share the story of Casey, who is the head of infrastructure engineering at Weight and Biases. And when he started on the job, as a good leader, he went to his team and basically spoke to everyone to understand what were the problems. And one of the recurring topics was, hey, on-call sucks. We are in a bad situation here. We need to do something about it. But the problem for Casey is he heard all these anecdotes, but he didn't have any data to back it. And he wanted to make sure that he could measure the improvement of the situation once he would implement fixes. As an engineer, the only way to know if something is broken, then you fix it, is to measure it, right? And make sure that whatever metrics you put in place is going in the right direction. And so he asked an engineer to create something and pull some data here and there. Obviously, not something straightforward for a software engineer and how to maintain and so on and so forth. So when he discovered this tool, he was like, wow, that's exactly what I need. I want to understand the baseline of this on-call situation for my engineering team, and that's exactly the tool I need. Another story I want to share, unfortunately, I cannot share the person and company name because he's still getting clearance from his public relations team, but he's an engineering manager working for a large fintech organization. And they have a weekly meeting with the engineering leadership where they review metrics and progress and so on. And every week, one of the managers is selected to give an update on the on-call situation and how their engineers are doing. It used to be a lot of work to prepare this. Now, obviously, it takes a few minutes or even seconds, as the tool is your favorite LLM provider, and it will ingest the data and come up with a summary of the situation. If you need to get in a meeting and you only have a few seconds, you can copy-paste the summary and put it on your slide and read it as you go. Thank you for listening. If you want to connect with me, I'm the most active on LinkedIn. I share a lot about reliability, AI, resilience. If you want to try on-call health, you can go to oncallhealth.ai or scan this QR code. During this talk at Google, I gave a small demo showing how to leverage on-call health along with OpenClaw. So I will also record a video showing this demo. I will put it here for you to see it. Before I finish this video, if there is one thing that you should remember from this talk, is that you should start measuring. Thank you for listening.